covering off the webinar on our corporate area and on our groups area of the system. We are going to start with the corporate area. So if I go into operations, I'm going to go down to corporate, and this will open up the corporate area. Now, the term corporate, don't get too much hung up on the term corporate, as think of it as any company that you really deal with. So any company that we want to track how much business they're doing with us, any company we want to give a special rate to, any company that we want to give direct billing to. Okay, these are the reasons that we're going to be using the corporate area. It's really any company that we're working with. Okay, so when I go into the corporate area, I have a number of corporates in here already. We're actually going to create some new ones today. So I'm going to click Add in the upper right-hand corner. Now the ID, you don't actually need to fill out the ID for any corporate accounts that are going to be booked internally only at your hotel. If you are getting a GDS interface or a Quick Connect interface with us, any of the companies that are going through the interface for the GDS or Quick Connect, they will require a code name. So for example, my Priceline account up top, see how it has a code name. But for any internal companies, we do not need that. Okay, so here we're going to put in our company, Johnson & Johnson. My contact over there is Betty Reed. Their address, 321 Bear Street. Now, if you fill out a zip code from the U.S., it's going to fill out city, country, and state for you. If you put in a postal code from Canada, it is going to fill out these city, country. We have provinces, but state, same thing. Okay. Now, anywhere else in the world, you'll have to click on the drop-down and then choose. We don't have the database for the auto-populate. So if I choose the UK, there's all their cities. If I choose Australia, there's all their, I think their provinces or territories there as well. Okay, but otherwise, we have the zip or postal code. In the attached note, this attached note is not going to show up to the guest, but it is going to attach to the reservation for the guest. It's more of a note for your reservation agent and for your front desk agent. So here I'm going to say all charges are to the individual. Or you can put pay on own or individual credit card, whatever makes sense there. Okay, I'm going to go to folio number. On folio number, if the guest is paying for room and tax, it is folio 1. If the room and tax is being direct billed, it is folio 8. So in this case, because it's all charges to the individual, I'm going to do folio 1. Put in the phone number. We can put in business number, fax, email as well. Okay, I'm going to click Post in the lower right-hand corner. We've now completed that company. Now, you'll also notice that we have a Rates tab. Ignore this Rates tab. Your trainer will have talked to you about the Rate Wizard area. The Rate Wizard is probably about 9 months old in our system. It's a new way of doing our rates, and it is a much quicker, more convenient. We have more functionality in that area as well. I'm getting a message from one of the participants that my sound is cutting in and out. I'm just wondering if it's on their computer or if anyone else is having any issues. If you are having any issues, please throw it. Sounds good? Okay. Thanks, Dana. Patrick, I believe it might be perhaps your internet connection on your side, unfortunately. Okay, so let's continue on here. We have Johnson & Johnson. Again, ignore this rates area. I'm going to show you how you attach the rates in the Rate Wizard area in just a moment. So that's our first type of company. We're going to add in our second company. So I click Add. Okay, in the company name, Mosier Painting Okay, here I'm going to say DB room and tax, right? So direct bill room and tax, or room and tax to be direct billed, room and tax to the city ledger. Again, whatever kind of terminology you guys are used to. I'm also going to put another note here. I'm going to say this company gets free parking. So maybe we charge for parking regularly, but these guys get it free. Okay. So because the room and tax is going to be direct billed, I'm going to choose Folio 8. We're going to put in the phone number. Okay, so because the room and tax is going to be direct billed, we need a city ledger account. Now the city ledger area is a totally different area of the system, but we do have it connected here that you guys can kill two birds with one stone in that you can create the company and create the city account at the same time. So here I'm going to click on Has City Account. If I click on the drop-down, Roomkey is then searching in the city ledger area to find this account. But if I'm creating a new one, we have the little button here, Create New Account. I'll put in Mosier Painting Inc. Now the credit limit, this is typically set by your credit manager or accounting. As a tool in Roomkey, you just want to make sure it's high enough to cover all outstanding balances at any given time. Credit limit as a tool in Roomkey really becomes useful when we're unhappy with a company and we're taking away credit. Then we use that as a tool. So just make sure it's high enough for any outstanding balances. If it's not, what happens is, let's say on Sunday morning the agent goes to check the guest out, but there's not enough credit, the agent will not be able to check the guest out to direct bill. Okay. I'm going to click Post in the lower right-hand corner. And that is our second type of company. So here the company has room and tax being direct billed, so we choose Folio 8. It's really just a way of hiding that room and tax on Folio 8 away from the guest. When you see it in action when we go through the reservations, it'll make more sense as well. Here we have the city ledger account attached to it. And then the first method is Folio 1, no city account, because the guest is paying for it themselves. Now, this is how we originally designed our corporate area to work, but there is a third type of company in between, and it's really our the third-party OTAs that are out there. The third-party OTAs, online travel agents, such as Priceline, Orbitz, Expedia, they typically do a net rate program. When you do the net rate program, they're charging the guest and you're charging that company a net rate. Typically, the reservation will flow through with a one-time use virtual credit card. So I'm going to click Modify on Priceline, and what we do it a little bit different. We're going to send the room and tax to Folio 8, but we are not going to create a city ledger account. I don't want to send it over to the city account. What I'm going to say here is post payment on virtual card to Folio 8 for room and tax. So again, this note, these instructions show up on the individual reservation for your front desk agent on what to do. And we're going to cover this when we get to reservation and front desk training once again. So those are really the three types of company that I would have in the system. So once I have my companies in here, Johnson & Johnson Mosier Painting, I'm going to close out of here. We're going to go back into system configuration. We're going to go to Rate Wizard. Here I have a standard corporate rate. My standard corporate rate is 10% off of my best available rate. I'm going to click Edit down below. I'm going to go to the Corporates tab. Click the little plus symbol. And here you can see I've already given the standard corporate rate to quite a few companies. So I'm actually going to add Johnson & Johnson to the list. They will get the standard corporate rate. I click Update, and I close out. I then go down to our preferred corporate rate. We're going to edit. we're going to go to the corporate area, click the little plus symbol, and this one is going to be given to Mosier Painting, Inc. Click Update, move on. Now, for the ones like the Orbitz net rate, that's only going to be connected directly to Orbitz. If there is any companies out there that have a very specific rate, so for example, Weyerhaeuser. So let's say that Weyerhaeuser gets a rate of $68.25. They're the only ones that get this contracted rate, the only ones that will ever get this rate. I would create a specific rate for that company so that you can attach it right to that corporate profile for Weyerhaeuser. Okay? And as one side note, if I go into the corporate area, I have one corporate rate that is attached to all these individual companies. If you are doing a GDS interface with us, and all of these companies are also going to be sold on the GDS for you, and they each have the corporate rate, you will actually have to build a rate plan for each company. Okay, because we can only talk on a one-to-one basis with the GDS interface to those companies. We can't have one rate plan such as corporate going up to each one of those companies. So it only affects you if you're putting these companies up on the GDS. Okay, otherwise you can use one rate plan for all of them. Okay. Okay, now this is jumping ahead a little bit. But if we go back into System Configuration Client Types, and your trainer would have kind of covered this in your first session when you talked about rates. Here we have the corporate code accessing the corporate area. So when I click on New Reservation, I'm going to click on the Client Type dropdown, choose Corporate. And again, we're going to do a full webinar on reservations, so I'm not going to go into too much detail here. Here I find the company. So for example, let's go to Johnson & Johnson. Click Refresh. So here I should be seeing the standard corporate rate. Indeed I do. If I go over to Guest Info, this is where I see that note. All charges are to the individual. So now let's switch that over to Mosier Painting. I'm going to refresh. We should now see the rate switch over to the preferred corporate rate, which we did. And under Guest Info, now it's the direct bill, room and tax. This company gets free parking. Now, for the third-party OTAs, I'm going to go back into System Configuration Client Types. And we recommend as a best practice to create a different client type for your OTAs. So I'm going to click New, even though I have one. I would click New, and you can call it OTA Net Online Travel Agent, or you can call it Third Party Net. Some people like that, or Third Party, whatever makes sense to you. So I would do OTA Net. That's what makes sense to me. OTA Net. We're going to access the corporate area once again. So again, even though the online travel agent is really a different type of company, don't get hung up on the term corporate. It's just a company that we deal with. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide the rate. When we click on Hide Rate, it hides it on two areas. It hides it on the confirmation. Now, for an online travel agent booking, when someone books with Expedia, they're not actually getting our confirmation. So the fact that we're hiding it on the confirmation doesn't really matter. The second area, though, that we do hide it is on the registration card. When the guest comes to check in, we still want them to sign the reg card, but we do not want them to see that net rate that the online travel agent is getting. Okay. Again, I'm going to review this again when we get to the reservation front desk training. This is just an intro to it. I would click Post and Carry On. So I already have my OTA net here. And so what happens is when we do the linking for you, we'll link all the OTAs to go through this client type. If you guys are not using our interface, then when you're making the bookings for this, you would just have to click on New Res, OTA Net. Now, all the companies are still going to show up in here. You just know that this is for your Expedia, your Orbitz, your Priceline, and whatnot. Okay, so we're going to break away from the corporate area, and we're going to focus on the group area. We are going to build 3 different types of groups today. We're going to build a group that is individual pickup, individual pay. So the example will be a bride and groom call up, and they want 10 rooms set aside. Excuse me, and each guest is going to call in individually to make a booking. The second group we're going to make is a group that has room and tax being direct billed, invoiced off to a company, incidentals are to the individual, and it will be a rooming list group. And then the third type of group I'm going to talk about when we get to it. It's kind of an in-between version. So whenever we're building a group, we want to check our availability first to make sure that we can accommodate this group. So I'm going to go into Operations, and we're going to go to Inventory Calendar. The shortcut key is F12 for the inventory calendar. Now, it will automatically default to today's date. So if I need to jump to a date, we can click on the calendar over here, and you can jump up to whatever date you need to see the availability. Or if I click on the drop-down, we have a little shortcut to come back to today's date. Okay, so we're going to be making this group for, let's say we got reservations, front desk, and front desk. So we're going to make it for Tuesday, April 29th. This will coincide with the webinar that we'll be doing on Front Office Advanced, and that day I'm going to show you how to do a group check-in and a group checkout. So we're going to make these for the 29th. So let's say that the bride and groom would like 10 of our standard rooms. So my room types here are the SNSL, which is a standard room, my deluxe room, which is a step up, and the loft room. Okay, so they want 10 standard rooms. We have 72, so no problem. I'm going to close out of this area. We're going to go into Operations menu, and we're going to click on Groups. When we get to the group area, you're going to see all future groups on this screen. So even if you have a group that's coming in 3 years from now, they're going to be on this screen. Okay? Once a group departs, they will stay on this screen for 3 weeks, and then they're going to disappear. Once they disappear, though, you're still going to be able to go into View, click Search. Whenever you're clicking Search, I always say take off Exact Match. And then you can go back, type in like SMIT, search, and there I can see the Smith-Jones wedding or the Smith-Wouter wedding. You can also go back and click search, and say you had a group that stayed with you last month, but you didn't know the name, you couldn't remember the exact date, so I can search for all groups from last month. And then I can say, oh, right, it was the Olympic Committee group. Okay? Okay, but in this case, we're going to create a new group. So on the right-hand side, I'm going to click on New. The name is going to be the name of the group, and I'm going to use, again, we'll go back to using Smith-Jones wedding. So Smith-Jones wedding. Okay, the group ID must be unique. You cannot use the same code over again. So I'm going to use SJW, a shortened version of the name, and I'm going to use it for the date that they're coming in. Just to remind myself, it was Tuesday the 29th we have them coming in. So I'm going to do 042914. Now, how this ID gets used, one, it uses, it comes up as a filter or a search that can be used. But as well, this will be used for our online booking engine, eRes. If you guys are going to allow groups to be booked online, this will become the code that the person has to put in to call up this group. Okay, again, it has to be unique, so you can never use the same one over again. Client type is going to be group. The room charge code, so you'll notice that I have room charge and I have room charge tax exempt. So your hotel, you may only have one. Some hotels have 4 different levels with different taxation levels. Okay, if you only have RCH in there and you do require different levels for taxation, please let your trainer know directly so they can help you with setting that up. But otherwise, I'm going to have room charge default with tax. Like I said, we have the group coming in on the 29th for 1 night. Now here we have guests can arrive and depart outside the block. So this would be, what if someone called up and said, I'm coming in for the Smith-Jones wedding. I would like to come in the night before and stay for 2 nights. If we don't allow for pre and post nights, this group won't even show up on the 28th, which means we would have to make 1 reservation for the guest arriving on the 28th for 1 night as a leisure guest, and then a 2nd reservation arriving on the 29th as a guest with this group. Some hotels do prefer to do it this way. The way that we recommend as a best practice is let's open up pre and post nights. I'm going to do 3 and 3. Maybe you guys will want to do 2 and 2, whatever makes sense to you. But I'm just going to say, if they want to come in a day or 2 or 3 days beforehand, that's fine. I'll put them under the Smith-Jones wedding, okay, or 3 days after. Now, the source of business, the question that we ask, typically this comes up whenever we're making a reservation. We ask the guest, how did you hear about our hotel? Now, when you're making a reservation for an individual pickup group, if you're asking someone who called up and said, I'm coming in with the Smith-Jones wedding group, and you say, well, how did you hear about our hotel? They're going to say, well, they told me that the wedding was here. So a lot of times people will just create a group source of business, because it really loses its meaning when we have it attached to a group. However, we could also ask the bride and groom, how did you hear about us? And put that in here. Or for a rooming list group, whatever you choose here for a rooming list group, it will go on to each reservation, thus becoming a statistic on that report. So it depends on how you feel about that. Attached note, I'm going to say all charges are to the individual. Okay, we're going to go to contact and billing next. On the contact and billing, we have the folio number again. So just like the corporate area, if room and tax is being to the individual, folio 1. If room and tax is being direct billed or routed or charged somewhere else, it's folio 8. Essentially, folio 8 is the guest is not paying for it themselves. And then there's 3 options. The third-party credit card, the house account that I'll talk about later today, and the city ledger or direct bill account. In this case, all charges to the individual, so I'm going to do folio 1. Here I'm going to get the address of the bride and groom, or whoever my contact really is. Now, actually, let's take out phone. Say I try to complete this without doing phone. So I click post in the lower right-hand corner. Room key is going to say value is invalid, and the little cursor will be flashing next to phone. Okay, so we do require at least an address, a contact name, and a phone number here. Okay, I'm going to click post. Next tab we have down below is the travel agent. Now this will be rare, but if you ever have a travel agent that is booking a whole group and you want to give them commission for the whole group, you can attach a travel agent here. Okay, I'm not going to cover this in training because this is rare, but I'll talk about travel agents as we connect them to individual reservations during the reservation training. Routing and deposit, this will come up in our 3rd type of group that we're going to build. Okay, this one is all to the individual. Okay, so once we're done the 4 tabs on number 1 button, we're going to go to number 2 button up top, which is notes. These notes strictly show up on this screen only. There is no report that prints out with these notes. These notes do not show up on the individual reservations for your agents. So what are these notes used for? Let's say the bride and groom called up and they wanted 10 rooms. 2 weeks later, the husband calls up and says, can you add 5 rooms? Well, first I would go to number 4, the block tab, and add the 5 rooms onto the original block. And in here, I would come in, click Insert. That will put my login. So each one of you is going to have your own login for the system. It will put your name here, the date. Here I'm going to say, John called today to add 5 rooms. Click Post, and we get a time date stamp. So it really just, it's kind of a history of any interactions I may have had, so anything I would want to remember. Okay? If you have a sales and catering system like Delphi or Infusion, you're probably putting these types of notes in there, right? Okay, next we're going to go to the Rates tab. On the Rates tab, here I have my 3 rooms. I have my deluxe, my loft, and my standard room. Now, the standard room is what the bride and groom asked for, so I'm going to click on Standard. We have 2 options. We can do a manual rate, and we can do a rate plan. I'm going to scroll down to the bottom. Now, I actually have a wedding group rate plan built. I'm going to click on the wedding group rate plan, click the little green arrow in the middle to bring it over, and then I'm going to set this as the default rate. I'm going to show you in the next one, I'm going to use manual rate. One side note though, if you are going to have a group bookable online, you cannot use manual rate. The manual rate will not work with ERES as far as doing an online booking for a group booking. It has to be a rate plan to be able to be booked. Okay. Now, what about the other 2 room types? The bride and groom have asked for 10 of our standard rooms. But what if a guest were to call up and say, hey, I've stayed with you before. I would actually like a deluxe room. Or maybe the bride and groom asks for all non-smoking rooms, but the guest calls up and they want a smoking room. Or maybe they need a handicap accessible room. So as the manager or the group's coordinator, it's within your best interest to go into the other room types, like the deluxe and the loft, and define the rate for each room type. So here I'm going to attach the wedding group rate. I'm going to set the wedding group rate as the default. I'm going to go to our loft room. Again, I'm going to choose the wedding group rate. Bring it over. Says the default, click Post. Now, the wedding group rate on the loft and deluxe room, it's more expensive. It's still a better deal than our regular bar rate, but it is more expensive, right? If you don't define the rate, if the agent goes to make a reservation for one of those rooms with the group, no rate will show up. Thus, you're leaving it up to them to decide what they should sell that room at. Maybe your hotel doesn't allow people to book outside the block. Then I wouldn't define the rate. But most hotels, as long as the room is available, then they'll sell it. Okay, so now that I've defined the rate for all room types, I'm going to go to number 4, our block. I'm going to click Edit in the upper right-hand corner. This is where we can set our cutoff days. So typical cutoffs are usually 30 days. Sometimes it's 15, sometimes it's 60. Depends on how big the group is. So what the cutoff does is this. Let's say I have 10 rooms in block. At 30 days out from arrival, if there's only 6 reservations made, RoomKey will automatically release those 4 rooms back into inventory. Okay? Now, that doesn't mean that someone can't call within 30 days to make a reservation for a group. It's just that we're no longer going to be holding the rooms as per the contract. Now, with the 30-day cutoff, we do have an issue with the date. Notice that the block dates are from the 26th to May 2nd. These block dates include my 3 pre-nights and my 3 post-nights. So because I allowed for 3 pre-nights, I actually want to bring this down to 27 days for cutoff because I need to be able to include, right, from this date that is already back 3 days from arrival for the pre-nights. So just be careful of that if you do pre and post nights. I am going to bring this down because we're already within 30 days. I'm actually going to bring this down to, now where are we, 26th, 16th. Let's bring this down to 5 days. Okay. I'm going to click Post. Okay, I'm going to go back to Edit for a moment. You'll see cutoff type. We have whole block, and we have 1 day at a time. 1 day at a time is not to be used with groups. It's to be used for the wholesale area that we have in our system. This exact screen is over in the wholesale area. Now, we do not cover the wholesale area within our webinars because we have very few people that actually use this area. So if you do need the wholesale area, your trainer will do one-on-one training with you. Now, let me define how you would use the wholesale area. You may very well work with a number of wholesalers. The only way we would use the wholesaler area in our system is if you're actually holding block for a wholesaler. So if you're holding a 2-room block every day for the whole year for like JohnView or Trico Holidays or something like that, then you would need to use the wholesale area, and please let your trainer know directly if you need that area. Most times wholesalers are working on availability in this day and age. That's why I say not many hotels use it. The second thing we'll see is block type. Block type solid actually takes the rooms out of inventory. Transparent does not take the rooms out of inventory. I would never use transparent block for a group. It's a false promise. It's like you're saying that you're going to hold 10 rooms, but Room Key doesn't take it out of inventory for you. How transparent is useful in our system? Again, this is tied to the wholesale area. Most hotels back in the day when we were doing wholesale block, even if people asked us for 6 rooms per day, probably weren't holding that many, or if any at all. My hotel, we had 321 rooms. Any given day, I probably had 40 rooms promised out to different wholesalers, and we may have been holding 6. Some days we wouldn't hold any, right? So that's why we have transparent. But for group, I think I would not risk it, okay? Okay, so I have my 5 days cut off. We're then going to go to inventory. Under inventory, we have our 3 pre-nights and we have our 3 post-nights. The group is arriving only on the 29th for 1 night, so I'm only going to put the block in on the 29th. I'm going to click Edit Mode in the lower left-hand corner. We're going to go to our standard room, and we're going to put in 10 rooms. Click Post. Okay. We're then finish this group at this point. Now these other tabs, guest services, rooming list, check-in, check-out, will be covering these throughout the training and reservations and front desk training. But at this point, we are done a group holding the block. So I'm going to close out of the group area. I'm then going to close out of the group master area. We're going to go back into operations, inventory calendar. Again, the shortcut key is F12. And if you look at April 29th here, if we look down below, see how we have 10 rooms in block. Let me move this over to the 29th. So here we go on April 29th. Okay, we have 10 rooms in block. If I go up top and click on Tuesday, April 29th, this button here, this is going to give us inventory detail for all rooms. Here we can see the Smith Jones Wedding holding 10 rooms in block. So we have 90 rooms total, 10 are being held, so we have 80 left. So again, I'm going to close. If you click on a single click on Tuesday, April 29th on this button here, that will give you inventory detail for all rooms. Now let's say that we want the inventory detail for a specific room type and a date. if you go to the intersection of those two and double-click, so a good example is this one. We're -1 on May 1st on my deluxe room. I want to find out who do I got to move, right? So if I double-click on the -1, that's going to give me inventory detail just for the deluxe room on May 1st. And here we can see we're actually holding 10 rooms in a test group, so we've overbooked on block, so I'd probably have to move people around. Okay, we're going to build a second type of group. This group is going to be a rooming list group. It's going to be direct bill room and tax. So I go into operations, inventory calendar. We got to check to see do we have the availability. I'm going to jump to the 29th of April. This group wants 3 of our deluxe rooms and 3 of our loft rooms. And indeed, we have 9 of each, so no problem. I'm going to close out of here. We're going to go back into operations groups. On the right-hand side, I'm going to click on new. I put in Talk World Discovery, TWD 042914 is my code. We're going to choose the 29th for one night. Now, because this group is going to have room and tax direct billed, I am not going to allow for pre and post nights. If the group contact said, yes, we will pay for pre and post nights, then yes, I would put in 3 and 3. But if they're not paying for pre and post nights, I'm not going to put it in. So that means that if someone were to call up on the 28th and say, hey, I'm coming in with Talk World Discovery on the 29th, but I would like to come in the night before, the cleanest way is to make a separate, separate reservation for the guests as a leisure, check them in and check them out, and then make them part of the group block where the room and tax is going to be direct billed. You just got to remember to keep the guests in the same room over the 2 reservations. In this case, it's actually a tour bus coming in, so I'm not going to get anyone coming in the night before or staying a day later. Source of business, I'm going to do group. I'm going to say DB, room and tax, incidentals to individual. I'm going to say Ross Meyer has account signing authority. So remember, this note will show up on each reservation as a note. It's good to put the group contact or who has account authority. So if Ross came up to a desk and said, yeah, we just went into the pub and we all had a round of beer, you can throw that on the master bill, right? Whereas if John Franklin came up and said the same, well, you're not the group contact, I can't, authorize that. We're going to go to contact and billing. We're going to choose folio number 8 because we are direct billing room and tax. I'm going to click on Bill to City Account. Now, just like the corporate area, I can click on Create New Account and create the new account. Or if we have an existing City Ledger account, I can click on the drop-down. We can search by account name, phone number, or contact name. I'm going to search by account name. So I'll search for Talk. Click Search. There's Talk World Discovery. We're going to select. And then here I can put use account to fill up address, and it will pull that address over from the City Ledger area and fill it in for my group. I'm going to click Post. Okay. Notes. Again, these notes only show up on this screen. There's no report that prints out. So it's maybe for any changes that happen throughout the life of this block. Under rate, they wanted deluxe rooms and loft rooms. So for the deluxe room, I have a Talk World Discovery rate. I'm going to bring that over. We're going to set the default rate as talk. Now, for our loft room, I'm going to give the talk rate, but I'm also going to give the comp rate plan. Because the deal that we have with Talk World Discovery is the tour guide with the group gets a complimentary room and he'll be getting a loft room. And so because this is going to be a rooming list group, I need to be able to have the comp rate assigned to this group so I'm able to choose it. But by default, I want it to go to Talk World Discovery. So this is where the default rate comes into play, and I say set Talk World Discovery as the default rate. The comp rate being attached just allows me to choose it at the time that I'm entering in the rooming list. And we're going to see the entering of the rooming list when we get to the reservation advanced training. Okay, I click post. Now, whenever it's a rooming list group, they're telling you exactly what rooms they want in block, and we're probably not going to have much shifting around. So in that case, you don't really need to assign rates to all room types. Unless your hotel for groups and group blocks, if you guys are constantly shifting people around to fill holes in your blocking and moving people around a lot, then perhaps it is best that you define the rate for each room type. Okay, we're going to go to block number 4. I'm going to edit. Now, the cutoff days, when you have a rooming list group, sometimes rooming lists are due 14 days in advance, 20 days, whatever it may be. The danger with cutoff is, say I set this at 14 days from arrival. Let's say that Sam Pryor calls me up and says, yeah, we're going to get the rooming list to you 3 days late. You got to remember to come in here and change this cutoff, right? Or else RoomKey will release all those rooms 14 days out, even though the guy called you and told you you're going to be late. So sometimes for rooming list groups, people don't like using the cutoff. I would at least recommend doing a cutoff of 1 day. And why I recommend this is, at 1 day out from arrival, let's say you did do that whole shifting, moving people around, canceling and all this, and someone accidentally left a room in block or messed up the block somehow, this kind of cleans it up at the end, all right, where any rooms that were accidentally left in block would be there. Okay, I click post. I'm now going to go to inventory. Okay, and here we have our rate plan defined. I'm going to edit. We're going to do 3 deluxe rooms, and we're going to do 3 loft rooms. Click post. We now have 6 rooms in block. I'm going to close out of the group area. Close. We're going to go into operations, inventory calendar. Go to 29th, and now we see we have 16 rooms in block altogether. If I click on Tuesday, April 29th up top, now I can see that Smith-Jones Wedding has 10 rooms in block. Talk World Discovery has 6, 10 and 6. Okay, we have one more group to build. Now the third type of group that we have is a group, let's say we have a group that has a rooming list. It is room and tax that is going to be taken care of, but the room and tax, this company is not set up for direct billing privileges. So either they're going to send us a check ahead of time, or they're going to pay for the group while they're in-house, whatever deal you have set up with them. But the idea is they're going to prepay or pay while the group is still at the property. So what we need is, we need one account that they can transfer everything to and set up as one bill. In our system, we call them house accounts. Now in other property management systems, we've seen them called posting masters, master accounts, group masters, group bills, whatever term was used. We use house accounts. House accounts can be used for multiple things. It's really just a billing account in our system. So before I build the group, I actually need to build a couple of components for the house account. So what I would like you guys to do, after I show you the house account method, if it looks like this is a method that you're going to need at your hotel, please let your trainer know directly that you will need us to build what I'm about to build in my shell. Say you will need house accounts, okay? And we can build it. Or if you feel comfortable from what I'm about to show you here, you can build them yourselves. So step one, I'm going to go into System Configuration, Client Types. I'm going to click New, and I'm going to build one called House Account. Okay, leave the function as independent because the function of a house account is really an independent room. So we just do a house account, click Post. I'm not going to click Post because I actually already have one here, house account. Step 2, I'm going to go to System Configuration, Property. I'm going to go to the Room Inventory tab. Now, the Room Inventory, we entered that in for you based on the property prep documents that you guys filled in. So again, if you feel more comfortable with us doing this for you, please let us know. Now what I would do, I would click Add on the right-hand side. I'm going to do House Account. In the room type short description, I'm going to do House Account. I'm going to unclick Web Res Available. Web Res Available is having a room type go on eRes, our online booking engine. The sort order, I'm just going to, because I have 3 real room types, I'm going to set the sort order as number 4 so it goes down to the bottom. And the most important thing is we want to set this as a house room. Because we're making this as a real room type here, it really does act just like a room. We make a reservation for a house account on a particular day for a group, but we don't want that to affect our occupancy statistics. So that's why we tick it off as house room. Okay, once we have all this, I click Post. Again, I'm not going to click Post because I already have my house account here. Okay, I'm then going to go over to the Rooms tab. Under the Rooms tab, here, I have the 9,000 accounts. Okay, to add a new number, I click Add on the right-hand side. I'm going to do 9010 and click OK. So how many house accounts do you need? Well, the question would be how many groups do you have in on the same day or date ranges that will be using this type of billing? Maybe at most 2 or 3. Okay. What else do we use house accounts for? Well, sometimes we use them for management meals or management laundry. Maybe it's used for clearing accounts for our meals that are included in packages. So your hotel may use house accounts already or posting masters for different things. So just got to look at how many you need. You can add as many as one. Okay. The only thing I'm going to tell you is they don't have to be the 9,000s. They could be the 8,000 accounts. You could even put house 1, house 2, house 3, something like that, right? You just want to make sure that they could never be confused with a real room number. So all my real room numbers are all 3 digits. So that's why I'm making my house account a 4-digit code so they would never get confused with a real room number. Okay? And really that just comes into play on custom reports or reports area. Okay, so with those 3 pieces of the puzzle, I can now go over to my group area and build a group. First, I gotta go into Operations, go into my Inventory Calendar. Oops. Operations, Inventory Calendar. Okay, again, we're going to build this for the 29th, and we're going to go back to them having 10 standard rooms. So I go into Operations Groups. I'm going to click New on the right-hand side. Okay, and we are going to make this the, I've used Hammermill, I've used Pepsi, I've used Remax. Let us use MEC, MEC Managers Meeting. Mac 042914, April 29th. We're not going to do pre and post night once again because it's going to be rooming list and they're taking care of the charges. I'm going to say room tax. I'm going to throw a new one in there. I'm going to do room tax phone calls are routed to the house account. Incidentals to individual. So this is a little bit different than direct billing, where I have the room and tax being direct billed. Here I have charges being routed to a house account instead. Okay. I'm going to go to contact and billing. I'm still going to send the room and tax to Folio 8. It's really just a way of me hiding it on the guest bill. The address that I put in here will most likely be the address of our contact, but it's also going to show up on that house account bill, that master bill that we're going to have. Okay. I'm going to click Post, and now this is where this tab down below, Routing and Deposit, comes into play. So I go to Routing and Deposit. Up top, I'm going to click on Add House Account. We're going to go to Client Type. I'm going to choose House Account. Account Type, I'm going to do House Account. House Room, just going to choose whatever one is available here. It doesn't matter which account I use. Some hotels sometimes set specific house accounts for specific things. So certainly if you want to do that, you can, but it really doesn't matter which one I use. T code stands for transaction code. So if we want to add a, say they gave us a credit card for this group, I'm going to do Visa. And for training purposes, I'm going to give you guys a fake credit card to use during training. It is 4 and 12 twos. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And yes, typically credit cards have 16 characters, but this is a fake one we have embedded into the system for you to use. Expiration date just has to be greater than today. And then you can use whatever name you're using for your group. Okay, I'm going to click Post. That will create the house account for me. Now, the next step, before I do the next step, it's very important to click on that house account. Okay. Down below, I now need to tell Roomkey, what do we want to route over to that house account? So if I choose Transaction Group, say we want to, say the group contact said, we're going to take care of all charges. Well, then just choose all. In this case, I need to choose Transaction Group, Room Charge, Transaction Code, Room Charge, and we're going to transfer to Folio 1. I'm going to click Add. Essentially what we're doing is we're going to put the room and tax on Folio 8 of the guest account. Just hide it off on Folio 8 on the guest account. And we're going to route it over to Folio 1 of the house account. If this doesn't make sense right now, when you see it in action when we do the front office training, it'll make more sense then. Okay. I'm then going to click on the drop-down, go to Other Charges, and I'm going to choose Phone. I'm going to add that as well. Once I have all my charges over here, I'm going to click Post. Now, let's say at this time as well, we told the group contact we need a $250 deposit on your credit card. So I'm going to click on the house account again. I'm going to click on Deposit. The credit card is automatically going to populate. We're going to do the amount of $250. I'm going to go over to my credit card machine. I'm going to type in the number, expiration, amount $250, goes through, I get an authorization number, I put it in here. If your hotel is getting a Shift4 or Sage payment interface with us, you don't need to put in the authorization. When you click OK Exit, the Shift4 or Sage payment window is going to pop up. You would click Post and you get an authorization. Again, if you're getting that interface, you will have separate training one-on-one with us on how Roomkey interacts with the interface. So during the training, I kind of focus on those hotels that do not have the interface since you're going to be having one-on-one training. Okay, OK New would be if I want to do a second payment. In this case, I'm going to click OK Exit to post that $250 deposit. Okay, from this point, the rest of the group is the same. I'm going to go to Rates. This time, I'm going to go to Standard. I'm going to use a manual rate. So for this group, they are getting 111. Now, if you're doing a flat rate for a group, put in as this. If you guys charge $10 on the third person, so just like you did over in the Rate Wizard area, you would just stick to the way that you do it in here as well. Now, I'm actually going to make a mistake on this group. What I should do is click on the drop-down and do manual rate as the default. I'm going to forget to do that step. So here I've entered in the rate, but I have not defined it as the default. I'm going to go to my block tab. Edit. Again, I can use the cutoff if I want 14 days, or I could just do 1 day just to help clean it up the day before. Click Post. I'm going to go to Inventory. So here's my little red flag. On my standard room, notice there's no average rate. That should stop me right there, okay? Because if I put in the block of 10 rooms, my forecast for that day is going to be extremely low on my revenue and my ADR because we're forecasting 10 rooms at a 0 rate. So this is kind of your double check. Make sure you have a rate there. So if I go back to rates, now I got to figure out, well, what did I do wrong on the rates tab? So I go back to rates, see the rate there, and I look, and I didn't set my default. So I go to default, set my manual rate, click Post. I'm going to go back to the block tab, click my little refresh button up top, and now we see the 111 fill in. We're good to go. Edit mode, put in our 10 rooms, and click Post. Okay, I'm going to close out of the Group Wizard area. I'm going to show you a couple of reports here. The first one I'm going to do, I'm going to do reports, and we're going to go to the cutoff date report. So remember I told you at 30 days out, so say a group has 10 rooms in block, only 6 reservations picked up, so the 4 rooms are going to be released. Roomkey doesn't set up a warning or anything, it just does it because that's the date that we set. But this report, what we recommend is we run this maybe every Monday for the next 2 weeks, or every day for the next week, whatever makes sense. So I'm going to run this from today till the 23rd, click OK. And here I can see the Smith Jones wedding comes up. The arrival date is the 29th. The cutoff date is the 21st. They have 10 rooms committed, 0 rooms picked up. Here, let me make that a little bit bigger. There we go. 10 rooms committed, 0 picked up. So that's why I'm probably going to get on the horn with Jane or John and say, hey, no one's coming to your wedding. So at that point, they're probably going to get on the phone and call people and say, call, make a booking. We're about to lose the rooms on the 21st. Okay? Or at least call them and say, hey, your block's about to go. What do you want to do? Maybe John and Jane will say, you know what? Put the 10 rooms under our name. We'll give you our credit card. We're going to guarantee them now. Right? So you could always go that route as well. Okay, another report. I'm going to go to the MEC Managers meeting. I'm going to go to Reports, and here we have the Group Pickup Report for selected group. Notice it automatically defaulted to April 29th, which is the arrival date of the group. I'm going to click OK. And this will give me the group details. So the group name. Now the group number, this is just the 40th group that I've entered into my system. The block start date, block end date, the group arrival date, and the group departure date. Our contact information, our note, the room attacks are routed. And then down below we have the block here. So our standard room, we have 10 rooms. We have 0 picked up, so remaining block for MEC is 10. Now notice it shows me April 30th, May 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. Even though this group is only for the 29th, why is it showing me all these other dates? I'm going to close out of here. And the reason it's showing all those other dates is if I go to report, group pickup report, the pickup report is for all groups on a certain date range. Because these are tied together, that's why we get all the other days. Now if I go to group pickup report, not the one for selected group, notice that defaults to today's date. So let's go up to April 27th, let's say, and click OK. So what that gives me is April 27th to May 10th. Any groups that are happening between that range. So here I have the test group. They're on May 1st. Bradshaw, Beadalone Wedding. They have no rooms in block here. Smith Jones, they have 10 rooms on the 29th. So this report I find a little bit hard to read when it comes to looking at all groups because it shows every room type and all the zeros, right, on all the other days. Certainly looking at this report, the selected group, if I need to know the specific rooms that are being held in block, then definitely this is a great report. If I'm just looking at an overall glance, I would actually use the daily group pickup report. This one I'm going to run. Let's run it for the rest of April. So the 16th until the 30th of April. I click OK. And notice that the reports, daily group pickups. Okay. Now, I ran this for April 16th to April 30th. So it's showing me April 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th. Notice that it skipped 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, and 25. And that's because I have no groups during that time. So the other report is showing all dates, whereas this report, it will skip any dates that we don't have any groups. Okay? If I go down further, we get to the Smith-Jones wedding. Starting the 26th, 27th, 28th, these are our 3 pre-nights. And then on April 29th, here we can see MEC Managers Meeting, Smith-Jones, Talk World. They're blocked, and none has been picked up as of yet. Okay, but this doesn't show me which room type MEC is holding. So again, this is just the overall view, whereas the group pickup report for a selected group, that's going to give me the individual breakdown. Okay, so that is actually it for today's session. We're, of course, going to be looking at making reservations for groups, doing rooming lists for groups, a couple of other little tidbits when we get to the reservation and front desk training on groups. Okay, I am going to open up the floor for questions as well. And I'm going to go in there right now and see if we have any questions at this point. Patrick, I will contact you directly about your question there. Okay, so if anyone has any questions, please feel free to type into the area. If not, you can feel free to dismiss yourself from the meeting. I'm actually going to stop the recording.